Welcome to Health, Wellbeing and Lifestyle, where experts in the field inform, educate and inspire the community to be healthier, more balanced and live the lifestyle they love. Our first guest today is Jacqui Grant. She's an NDIS business consultant and empowerment coach. Welcome to the show, Jacqui.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Jacqui, what's the secret for NDIS providers to be successful?
One of the big key points to being a success is to understand your scope of practice and to ensure that those services that you want to provide are actually part of a participant's plan. Now, one of the things that happens is that a lot of people decide to be a sole trader in the NDIS business and they think, oh, I'll just get an ABN, I'll get some insurance and that's all I really need. But they don't understand how their services can provide value to participants. Basically, under NDIS, and one of the places to check is the NDIS pricing arrangement on their website, is service providers can be nurses, they could be allied health professionals, support workers, now that is the biggest one and what most people have in their plan, psychology, there's even transport, meal prep, and then there's space for respite, short-term accommodation, and then specialised disability accommodation. It's a long list, I understand. And one of the keys for people to have that success for their own business is to know exactly where they fit in with the plan and the value and the importance and that it's reasonable and necessary for the participant. So reasonable and necessary is one of the things that NDIS talk about a lot, and it means that the service that the person has is relevant to their disability and it is necessary. With the scope of practice, one of the things that we currently find, especially with businesses that come to me, is that they don't realise, like, they have a qualification such as a hairdresser, which is great, it's a great skill, but when you want to be a support worker, do you understand what that means and the risks to being a support worker? Because you're providing care and services, so helping someone showering, dressing, shopping, it doesn't sound like a big deal, but when someone has a disability, they are vulnerable, they're open to risk, and if you don't understand how to do a risk assessment, if you don't understand some of the things that are required for that person or even their disability, for example, they may have an acquired brain injury. Now, you need to understand behaviour and how temperament, they might be aggressive, they might withdraw. So understanding those disabilities is really important, and if you don't have that lived experience, then working as a support worker can, in some cases, cause harm rather than what we want, which is empowerment and support and encouraging choice and control for the person. Quality of life.
Why is business compliance so important?
Well, in Australia, owning a business, whether it's a company, partnership, there's consumer law, there's ATO requirements and insurance requirements, and NDIS have their set of requirements as well. Now, with that, when you have your paperwork, so your compliance is documents, policies and procedures, and you not only have them, but you use them, you are able to ensure that if there is ever an incident, and let's face it, incidents happen, we're dealing with people, you know exactly what to do, who to go to. Some incidents are reportable to NDIS. So if you don't have your business compliance in place, your business plan, financial plan, you could find yourself at high risk of major problems, and nobody wants that. Now, just to go a little deeper into that, with NDIS, you can either be a NDIS registered service provider, so that means you put an application into NDIS, you have an audit, and you have to understand national practice standards, NDIS practice standards, and then you wait for your registration after your audit, and you will be audited regularly. It's part of NDIS compliance. However, the way NDIS is, you don't need to be a registered NDIS provider, and that means that you don't have to put in the application and you don't have to be audited. But people sort of think, well, if I'm just a sole trader, I'm not NDIS registered, I don't need documents, policies and procedures. Well, technically, best practice would indicate you do, because you should be doing care plans. You should be looking at how you can support your participant with their goals. And that's what a care plan does. It understands the person's needs and how to help them achieve them to be the best they can.
What are some of the tips and advice you'd offer to businesses to increase participation and engagement?
So one of the biggest things I see everywhere, and one of the biggest questions people ask me, so social media, I met a lady in the cafe the other day and she's like, oh, I want to grow my NDIS business, how do I do it? And so one of the first things I asked her was about her social media. What presence do you have? Do you have a website? How do you know that you are the right person for the people reading your Facebook post? What is your message and how clear is it? So having a really good business plan that incorporates a marketing plan can help. A website that is really clear and it makes it easy for people to go, oh, that's the service I want. And it builds trust. And of course, understanding your potential participants' hobbies, interests. What do they want to do? What do they want to get out of their plan? What's important to them? So understanding what that looks like a day in their life and how you can best help them achieve that. The other thing is, as a business, network. Get to know other businesses in your area or even nationally, and attend things like networking events, to attend education sessions where you've got those common grounds of, like, you might all be learning about epilepsy or acquired brain injuries or anything, autism, things like that, where you are likely to meet either other service providers and or people that have somebody in their life that has a disability, or it could be the person themselves. So really branching out and getting to know a lot of different people. And finally, word of mouth, reputation. Like when somebody says, Mary was great, she showed up on time, she was reliable and she listened to me. Sometimes that is the best way to get additional business and grow.
Thank you, Jacqui, for such important information. If you'd like to know more about Jacqui Grant and what NDIS service providers can do to be successful, please go to her webpage on our website, healthwellbeingandlifestyle.com.au. And after the break, we'll have another interesting guest with another interesting topic. Stay tuned. After the break, breathwork expert and life coach Christine Hart-Savage will be talking about overcoming anxiety. Welcome back, and our next guest is breathwork and life coach Christine Hart-Savage, and the topic we'll be discussing is overcoming anxiety. Welcome, Christine.
Thank you, it's lovely to be here.
Christine, we know a lot of people suffer from anxiety. What is anxiety?
It's an interesting topic, anxiety, because often when you're suffering from anxiety, you don't realise it's anxiety. You just feel not right. And there's a type of fear that comes with anxiety. It depends on how serious it is. Anxiety can be it's like, put it this way, it's like, for me, a river that runs always in the background. And some days that river rises up and becomes really full and powerful, and other times it settles down a bit, but it's always running in the background. It's always this level of discomfort. And in that discomfort is fear, like there's a fear. And when it's really strong, it's terror, it's dread. And that's when I used to think, oh my God, I'd rather die than be experiencing this. It's quite strong. It's a horrible thing, anxiety. It's horrible. So if anyone's really out there suffering from this, there are things you can do. But I think, Megan, the thing that is great these days is there is help out there. There's help everywhere for anxiety, like it's recognised. But when I was first suffering from it, it wasn't recognised. You hid it. It was something that if you were stressed, that was fine. You could have stress. But if you were anxious, you couldn't tell anybody because it was taboo, anxiety. So now it's different. It's like, yes, I have anxiety, and people understand it a lot better. But the symptoms that I had were this feeling of, if you imagine a whole group of butterflies or moths, it's probably more like moths than butterflies, and they're all flapping together and they're all banging into each other in your solar plexus, like your stomach area. And then this fear starts to take you over. And then you start to have thoughts of dread, fearful thoughts, worry thoughts, and you just feel yourself contracting in, and it's really powerful, and it literally takes you over, completely takes you over.
The way you describe it, it sounds like you've experienced it yourself.
Most definitely. I've had really chronic anxiety in my life, and that's what took me into the pathway that I work in. It was through this anxiety, and it can be so incredibly strong that you can start to have panic attacks. And a lot of people do have panic attacks, and mine became so severe that, I don't know if you know the term tetany, but tetany is where your body freezes up, and I would end up laying on the floor going, not able to breathe, and just like I was completely paralysed by the fear of anxiety. And of course, it's a catch-22, because then when I was thinking I was going to do something that brought anxiety to me, or I felt anxiety, like public speaking, I would never in a million years have thought I would be public speaking like I do these days. I couldn't speak up, I couldn't find my voice. So if I had to do something that put me in a situation where I felt fear, then I would have terror of having a panic attack, and that would create the panic attack. So it's a catch-22. You have this panic about panicking, and on it goes. And it's something that is there 24/7, like every single day. It's a horrible thing. I can laugh about it now, but it is a very serious condition, and it can stop people from doing anything. You know, it can keep you at home, too scared to step outside and live your life. And the dreams that we have, that we want to achieve in our lives, it can stop you from even taking one step towards that dream because you freeze up. I can't do this, I can't do this. Maybe people will laugh at me, maybe I'll make a fool of myself. And we can get through that, where these days I think if I make a fool of myself, oh well, it doesn't matter. But I've been on a real journey with this, with anxiety.
Christine, is there anything you would recommend for our viewers to take away from this?
Oh, yes. Firstly, when you're feeling anxious, just take a step back. And again, my favourite thing, the anchor is your breath. Through the nose, always through the nose, in through the nose, out through the nose. Settle yourself. Give yourself permission to step back and just slow down. And it's probably a hard thing to do for people when you're in anxiety, but really look at the thought processes you're going through as well, because your thoughts will be going nuts. They will be telling you every negative thing that could happen. So we need to, when we put it this way, when we breathe, we can slow the thought processes down as well. So again, one of the biggest things I did for anxiety was learn to meditate. And that slows everything down. And when you feel the anxiety building up again, if you didn't do something or have a skill like meditation, you can't bring it back down again. So if you meditate once a day or twice a day, if the anxiety is building and you meditate, it brings it down so that you're balanced again, and then you can go back out into the world. I've got a quick story. Have you got time for a quick story?
Yeah.
I don't know where I heard this or where it came from, but there was this story about this young boy that was born into a family, a large family, and he was chosen to become a monk. And he did not want to be a monk. Anyway, he was taken to this place, and the abbot sat down and spoke to him in this monastery. And he said, "Sit down, my son," and he said, "Okay, I'm sitting down, but I am standing on the inside." And then one day the abbot was out and about, and he happened to notice this young boy walking up the passageway towards him, and he thought, this is this young man. And he stopped and he spoke to him, and he said, I see you are standing on the outside, but now you are sitting on the inside. That is what meditation can do for you. That's what it's done for me. That's why I love to teach people meditation.
What a fantastic story, Christine. If you'd like to know more about overcoming anxiety and Christine Hart-Savage, go to her webpage on our website, healthwellbeingandlifestyle.com.au. And after the break, we'll have another interesting guest with another interesting topic.
Stay tuned. After the break, health, life and love coach Heather Belle Murphy is talking about the secrets of long-lasting love. Welcome back. Today we have Heather Belle Murphy on the show, a health, life and love coach, and our topic is the secrets of long-lasting love. Welcome to the show, Heather, and tell us, how many secrets are there?
There's actually quite a few, Kirsty, which I'm sure you can appreciate. If I can offer some great advice, as a bit of a mentor and being pretty seasoned in love myself, love is a skill like anything, and I think there's been a cultural perception, or some of us who may have been raised with a religious overtone, and certainly I had an early Christian upbringing, that love just, it's just this thing that comes naturally. So I've certainly grown up through relationships, and I've gotten better at it, and there are obviously some skills which are really important to create a sustainable, loving life. And then, a long-lasting, juicy, vital, fun, passionate, romantic relationship. Number one is definitely to fall in love with yourself first, and to know your strengths and identify your weaknesses. Now, if you know that you've got a really flaky, bad habit, for example, being bad with money, that's probably something which you prefer to address sooner rather than later, because that's one of those things that can make sustainable love tricky. A great saying is, when financial hardship comes through the front door, love tends to fly out the window. So that's one thing. It's like being aware of what your strengths and weaknesses are, and if you can, address those weaknesses, or it's something that can be shared with a partner, because maybe you don't carry the financial reins in the relationship. Perhaps, that's a job for the partner. If it's something that a particular person is poor in. Another thing is, so along with that self-love, is identify your partner's strengths and weaknesses. This is a really common, actually it's almost like we're entering the time with all the online dating, and the Tinder love. It's almost like entering the menu log love stage, where relationships are starting and finishing, within a few hours. So there is definitely learning dating skills for women in particular, and this was a big mistake, was that I didn't give myself permission to identify who I really wanted to be with. I tended to let the other person just choose me and then go along with it. And so I would end up in relationships where I was obviously with the wrong person. And then being young and naive and lacking skill in that area, and thinking that love was unconditional, which is a really big thing for women, I would be trying to make a bad match work, and then thinking, I need to just work harder at it. It was actually just that I was with the wrong person all along, because it was all a hormone driven, that friction of passion and physicality, but really the long-term juice just wasn't there, and it was actually never there to start with. So there is a thing about giving yourself permission to choose, knowing what your strengths are, knowing what you like.
Heather, does unconditional love exist?
I would answer Probably no, especially when it comes to intimate, sustainable, long-term love, because this comes down to house training, which is about doing our part in the relationship. You're probably not looking at a long-term love picture if somebody thinks that it's okay to just, sit on the couch and eat chocolate. It's probably not part of a sustainable long love picture. So definitely the role where, and it's part of a healthy love life plan for, whatever an end result looks like in a relationship. So people are going to play their parts.
And what tips do you have for our audience?
Definitely, I would say have a love plan together, and make time for each other. So, I find it quite a common thing that when people have been in a relationship for a few years, they can get into the pattern of taking each other for granted, which may look like there's never date night. There's never date night for intimacy. It's not planned. There is also that plan of that end result about who you want to be in the relationship, and then how your relationship is going to look like. I love receiving flowers. I think it's an incredibly sensual and sexy act. And so, he gives me roses on a regular basis. Bit of a surprise in there, which is really nice. So it's never like it's a spontaneous Tuesday every week because you set a calendar to it or something. But it's a really lovely surprise. However, I've got friends. Now that was part of my juicy fantasy little movie that I played out in here before we met, that now projects out here. I've got friends who don't like holding hands, don't like getting flowers. They think, what's the point of receiving something that's going to be dead in a week? So that's not part of their plan, which is fine. So they've got a different plan. So of course, it all depends on choosing what we like to start with, and then being capable of receiving it. Now, women, receiving is a massive, massive secret, and also gift to a man. I've got friends, and I've got those kinds of Facebook friends where they'll be posting, when a man loves a woman, he'll give her this, and hold her and do this, and then they can't receive a cup of coffee, or they can't receive the offer of a ride home. So receiving for women, which goes into our self-love, being the fountain of love, not the well of sacrifice, it's a huge thing. My partner knows when he gives me things that I really love receiving them, and also that I'm going to honour him in having given to me. That's a big thing as well.
Thank you so much, Heather. They were some lovely and insightful tips. And if you want more information on Heather Belle Murphy and the secrets to long-lasting love, go to her webpage on our website, healthwellbeingandlifestyle.com.au. That is the end of our show. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next week.
If you'd like to know more about our show, please like our Facebook page and subscribe to our YouTube channel.